Well, thank you everyone for attending our webinar today, transitioning to an omni-channel retention strategy. On behalf of Annex Cloud, BigCommerce, Irish Titan, and Surdyk, we're really excited for you guys to join. Really excited to talk about some of these strategies. I know it's a very interesting time with the current business landscape, and I'm sure a lot of you already have an omni-channel business, or maybe you're a business that's being forced to move online faster than you thought. And so what we really wanted to do is talk about ways that you can keep your customers engaged and make sure that you have a really strong retention strategy from an omni-channel presence. So in terms of the introduction, or the agenda, I'll do some quick introductions, and then BigCommerce is going to talk a little bit about sort of the overall landscape with e-commerce as well as omni-channel. Then Annex Cloud is going to get into more of the new age loyalty tactics that we're seeing. Irish Titan's then going to talk a little bit about how they approach focusing on your business and then moving into the online space. And then we're really excited to have a mutual customer of all three of us, Surdyk, on, where Irish Titan and Surdyk are going to have a nice little digital fireside chat. So with that, let me introduce the panel. So first is myself. My name is Greg Bauman, and I'm the Director of Channel Partnerships and Alliances with Annex Cloud. We also have Sachin Wadhawan, the Senior Director of Technology Partnerships at BigCommerce. And last but certainly not least, we've got the founder and CEO of Irish Titan, which is a BigCommerce SI, Darin, Lynch. So I'm going to pass it over to Sachin. And Sachin, I'd love for you to chat a little bit about what you guys are seeing holistically from an omni-channel commerce perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Greg. And thanks, Greg and Darin, for having us as part of this conversation. This is very timely and very important. And I know that a lot of us have been watching a lot of webinars and been on the screen. Our goal here is really to give you some insights that you can walk away with. Again, my name is Sachin Wadhawan. I'm the Senior Director of Technology Partnerships. As Greg said, I really want to kick off this conversation in stepping back and looking at what's going on with e-commerce in general since for the current situation since the COVID started. So what we're seeing is the greatest push towards e-commerce that our industry globally has ever seen. And I think all of us know of friends or family members in our network that never really shopped online or preferred not to shop online for one reason or the other, that are now forced to experience that, right? They either never bought groceries online or never ordered food online, but for the last couple of months, they've been doing that, right? So it's certainly changing that behavior. And I think what we need to be thinking about is how these habits will change now and for the future. And when we think about these from a business perspective, we should be thinking about how do we change as merchants and as retailers, how do we change our acquisition and our retention strategy for these net new customers and customers in general. So the next slide, Greg. Now, stepping back and looking at kind of what started as a local problem that then grew global. So we first saw in March timeframe, rapid slowdown in manufacturing, supply chain was disrupted and has been disrupted since then. And if you guys remember, we also saw significant panic in some of the essential items, right? So people were buying toilet paper and hand sanitizers and bikes online, and a lot of that traffic moved online, right? And there were businesses that had the right e-commerce strategy, they had the right technology, they were able to manage that surge, and others that didn't. What followed from that was this continuing change in shopper behavior. And I think all of us can relate to this, where our shopping preferences are changing, right? When we're shopping, some of us are comfortable going into the store and picking up the food, or others are comfortable doing the curbside pickup, right? So I think what would be interesting for us to observe, and obviously this is changing because some states shut down and now they are opening and shutting down again. So it'll be interesting for us to see how much of this behavior continues and what aspect of this behavior stays the same. Would consumers just go back to browsing in store and buying and picking up, or will those how that behavior will change? What we do know that something will change, right? There's a permanent change in our preferences, and the way we think about online shopping is changing. So on the next slide, Greg, please. Now, as an e-commerce platform, we power over 60,000 merchants on our platform. So since the COVID started, we have been distributing this information in terms of the trends we are seeing across our customers. And I don't think these categories would surprise anyone, but there were certainly some categories that started to dramatically have an impact in the first couple of weeks of COVID. And since then, they have changed in growth, and others that were not able to that kind of suffered from the change, right? So certainly sporting goods, apparel and accessories, vehicle and parts always surprises me, because at one point you might think that nobody's driving or less people are driving, but on the other side, because people are home, they're working on their cars, right? So that's where that category shows up. But the point here is that we have been observing and communicating this information out to see how this new norm, how this new world is impacting merchants in certain categories, and what kind of trends we're seeing. So just wanted to share, what these top categories are that have seen the most impact year over year during the COVID time. So from all of that, it's time to shape the next normal. Now, I don't think any of us on this call know when that next normal starts. But I think what we all can agree on is that there is a new normal coming, right? And based on what I just talked about, the customer's expectation around level of personalization will likely be different, right? And it's not just personalization based on what color of shirt I like or what I've purchased from your store in the past, but it's personalization based on my shopping preferences, right? So on the checkout experience, the default used to be, if I'm buying online, something is going to get delivered at my front door, right? But now that preference, that personalization needs to show up there during the checkout, right? So that leads to a hyper-personalization world that we'll be entering. Now, we've all known that personalization is important, but how do we think about hyper-personalization and take into all these attributes in terms of their consumers that are now shopping for the first time? And they may not be shopping for the first time because that was their first choice, but they're shopping from the first time because the store they used to shop at, is not open right now, right? So taking into account how we apply that hyper-personalization at every experience and engagement that we have with that consumer online, right? And when you think about the different phases that consumer goes through, you really have to apply this hyper-personalization from the way we acquire them, the way we engage with them, the way we retain them, and Greg will talk about that from loyalty perspective, and all the way to the way these consumers return their products. So next slide, please. All right, so that was from a very high level, what we're observing in the industry view. Just to give you a little bit info about BigCommerce for anybody on this call that's not familiar with us. We are an enterprise e-commerce platform. We were founded in 2009. We have over 750 plus employees across the globe. And we process, as I said, over 60,000 customers on our platform. Now, these customers, on the next slide, please, Greg. These customers, our mission is to help these merchants, help our merchants, our customers, sell more at every stage of growth. So we work with businesses that are just starting out to businesses that are doing $100 million online and more. And the three key value propositions that we bring to our merchants are low TCO, lower total cost of ownership, powerful performance, and built for growth. And all of these value propositions are very relevant in the current time frame. So low TCO in terms of lower upfront investment. We have seen a lot of bricks to clicks migration, right? Many businesses that were retail stores only are net new to now in a rush to go online, right? So how much investment they need to make upfront in there to go online, to start selling online, and how fast they can start selling online, in terms of faster time to market is really important. And all of that goes into the low TCO value proposition. Performance is really important. So for many businesses, on the last slide, for many businesses, uptime is really important, right? So performance plays a role in uptime, fastest page speed load. So how consumers expect their experience if they're on the desktop versus on mobile is really important. And built for growth, especially for businesses that are just now rethinking their e-commerce strategy, they should be selecting a platform that they can scale on, right? So it's not just for now, but as their business continues to grow, how can they rely on their platform to have the right integrations into other applications and be able to scale as their business grows. And then lastly, on the next slide, I just want to touch on B2B. So many businesses, many people think of e-commerce as just applying to retail and B2C experience, but it equally applies to B2B as well. And what we observe and have seen is many B2C businesses, as they continue to grow, they start to see changes in their buyer profile, where there's wholesalers and bulk buyers that really start to act more as B2B. And then we see a lot of B2B businesses entering into the B2C world through going direct to consumer, right? So the point here is that you want to make sure that your platform, your e-commerce platform, can manage any combination of that B2B and B2C type business model. So you don't have to have a different site for your B2B and different site for your B2C business. So with that, Greg, I'll pass it back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Sasha. No, that was really great. And before I go on, I did just want to share one quick housekeeping item that I forgot to mention at the beginning, but we do have the Q&A open. So if anyone does have any questions and we have some time at the end, feel free to submit those questions and we'll see what we can do there. But just to tie in what Sachin was talking about when it comes to hyper-personalization and increasing that customer engagement, I think that's a really good tie into what we want to talk about here with new age loyalty, especially given the current business environment we're in right now. It's really important that we focus on engaging our current customers so that we continue to get them to come back in and be a repeat customer. So when we talk about new age loyalty, what does that mean? And what we're really talking about here is moving away from the traditional loyalty program, which is more of that earn and burn mentality. It's much more transactional focused. So I purchase a product and then I'm going to earn points for that product. And down the line, I might have enough points to get a discount or some type of cash back. Now, those have been helpful in the past, but from an engagement perspective, we're really seeing more growth when we look at this more from a social and behavioral perspective. So the way we look at loyalty is looking at it from two lenses. First, what's in it for the member? It's really important that when you're putting together a loyalty program, that you're making it very customer centric. What types of things do our customers value that we could incorporate in a loyalty program, and what actions can we encourage them to take that are going to incentivize them to want to take advantage of those rewards. So being very customer centric with your loyalty program is going to be incredibly important. Plus, really thinking about it from the brand perspective of like what pain points you're trying to solve. So, if you are a business that is, being pushed to move online maybe quicker than you would like, or you currently have an omni-channel business and you're trying to drive certain engagement in a certain way, how can we reward those customers for taking actions to purchase more online, or to engage with us through our social media channels, or for posting a review? What types of things what types of pain points are we trying to solve as a brand that loyalty can help us in that process from a retention perspective? And we really look at it from the landscape of leading with emotion. So at this point, most customers and consumers in general, they buy on their emotions, and they're driven by experiences, and they almost sort of expect some type of experience at this point. So when you're able to build that connection with a brand through your loyalty program, it's going to drive more of that emotional stickiness that they might be looking for when they're buying products from a company. And that leads into this chart that Bain and Company had put together. And what you see here is a chart of all the different elements of value that consumers look for in a B2C business. And it sort of runs the gamut in terms of very simple functional things such as, you know, time savings, hassle avoidance, cost reduction, just making sure that everything seems to make sense and is informative, all the way up to really what they call life-changing and social impact type things like providing hope, affiliation, and belonging. And so these are all the things that consumers say they care about when they're looking at a specific brand. And what they found was that brands who use 4 or more of these elements are actually associated with a higher lift in their revenue versus those who aren't leveraging these elements of value in their strategy. However, a lot of the times, a lot of these brands are focused more on the functional level. Part of that is because they're maybe a little bit easier. They're more holistically a part of your business. And in some cases, they might be table stakes to running a business. But a lot of the disruptors in their respective industries are really focusing on that emotional tier and above. And one of the reasons why is because emotional elements are powerful as functional elements in predicting a positive NPS. So when you are focusing on these higher tiers, you're really differentiating yourselves from your competition in terms of building that type of connection that a lot of consumers are hungering for. And a loyalty program can help support a lot of these different emotional connections. So these are 5 elements that we identified that we think a loyalty program can really help you tackle as you're trying to build out your retention strategy. And the first one is, you know, is it fun and entertaining? You know, what is unique about my loyalty program that's going to make me want to come back and interact with it, you know, time after time? Am I building some type of online community through the loyalty program? Do I have different like contests or games that my loyalty members have the opportunity to take advantage of? So what am I doing to make it unique and fun so that, you know, I am more likely to come back and engage with that loyalty program versus someone else's loyalty program? The next one is rewards. So this is pretty self-explanatory with loyalty, but you know, it really comes down to the types of rewards. So what types of rewards am I offering to my loyal customers that they care about, that they see and say, you know, this is enough for me to want to actually interact with this loyalty program and earn enough points to, you know, redeem these rewards or move up to a new tier that allows me to take advantage of these rewards or maybe their experiences as well. And that ties into the offers of badge or tier value. So we're all inherently competitive in some way. And so again, when we have identified the right types of rewards and we tier them out, you know, it's going to be give us more incentive to want to move from the bronze level to the silver level, to the silver level to the gold level. Because I know that if I'm engaging with this brand and earning loyalty points in a variety of different ways, I know I'm going to receive these different benefits that I really care about and value. And that also leads into affiliation and belonging. What am I doing with my loyalty program that's giving me like a VIP experience? How am I making my loyal customers feel different and feel like they're more a part of the brand's journey than maybe the average consumer? Maybe that's offering exclusive products that are only available to our top loyalty members, or maybe we're giving away some type of free service to those customers that you know, the average consumer wouldn't have access to. You know, what am I doing to make them feel like they're a part of the journey? So that's really important. And then motivation sort of is all of this together. You know, what's really motivating me to want to engage with your loyalty program versus someone else's? What's motivating me to move up to the gold level? What's motivating me to want to access these different rewards that I might have the ability to redeem down the line? So if you're able to incorporate these different elements of value in a loyalty program, it can really help to drive that emotional connection that you're looking for, which again then means that, you know, those consumers are going to buy from their favorite brand more often than if they were less emotionally engaged with that brand. So again, incredibly important to build that connection. Now, what problems does this solve for the brand? So the first one is it's going to increase your margins. So when you're retaining your existing customers, you're investing a lot of money up front to acquire these customers through your paid acquisition campaigns, your SEO campaigns, maybe even referral marketing. So you're investing a lot up front to get them to purchase from you once. But when you are able to get them to purchase second time, a third time, you're not, that acquisition cost isn't falling onto those additional purchases. So the more often they buy, the higher the margin is on the product that you're selling. It's also going to allow you to increase your frequency of purchase rate with your customers, your average order value. Loyalty programs, if you offer certain incentives, might allow them to want to purchase more products from you. And then especially lifetime value. Increasing that lifetime value is very critical when putting together a successful loyalty program. It also allows you to keep your customers engaged in between the buying cycle. I think this is really important when we talk about this new age loyalty, especially in this environment where people might not be purchasing as frequently, and a lot of us don't sell a product that we buy every day. So what are we doing to build that equity with these customers in between the buying cycle, so that when they are ready to come back and buy again, they're more likely to come back to us than one of our competitors. Loyalty programs can also help incentivize customers without having to take a discount. So a lot of times, I think once we get a customer into our system, the first thing we think about is, getting them to come back. We offer them some type of discount. But if we're putting together a loyalty program that drives, real engagement, you might not have to slap that 15% discount to get someone to come back. The rewards, again, might be enough to get someone to continually come back and interact with you and buy from you. And then lastly is it helps you reward advocacy. And your loyal customers are definitely going to want to refer their friends, family, colleagues to your brand because, they feel that affiliation with you. And when they're referring their friends and family, they're more likely to become loyal customers in the future just because of that affiliation that they have with someone who's already a loyal customer with you. So again, all really important things in terms of how loyalty can help solve some of these pain points. And then lastly, before I pass it over to Darin, as Sachin mentioned, he highlighted B2B a little bit, and I wanted to do that as well. So I know we talked a lot about B2C loyalty, but I don't want to neglect B2B loyalty. We're seeing a lot of interest from B2B companies in terms of leveraging a loyalty program. And it's definitely something that B2B companies can take advantage of. Now, it might not be as linear, say, as a B2C company when you're engaging directly with the customer, but you do have a lot of different stakeholders that you might want to reward or incentivize, whether it's your employees or your sales reps or various vendors that you have, your distributors. These are all people that you can reward for various actions such as, purchase renewals or acting as a reference, being able to encourage the, vendors or employees to sign up and take advantage of educational content that you need them to watch. So again, B2B loyalty can be a great way to drive that engagement with a lot of those vendors and distributors that you might have, so that again, they're more likely to interact with you from a long-term perspective instead of moving on to one of your competitors. So again, B2B loyalty is critically important for B2B companies to stand out and differentiate themselves in their markets. So with that, Darin, I'm going to pass it over to you and let you talk about business first and online second.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Sachin, for kicking us off. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Depending on where you are, you might be taking some time out of your lunch hour to listen to us. So hopefully we're going to make good use of your time. As Greg mentioned, I'm Darin Lynch. I'm the founder and CEO of Irish Titan. We are an e-commerce agency. So I'll talk just a little bit about us, a bit of a credibility check, if you will, so you understand where we're coming from. We were founded in 2004. I started the company way back then, so we've been around for quite a while now, at least by e-commerce standards. A couple of things about us to give you a sense of scale and what we do. We do all of our work with just our Titans. That's how we refer to our employees, a Titan-only model. Right now, I think we have 34 Titans. I'll get to the services they provide in the next slide. But we do all the work with those Titans. We don't use any contractors, freelancers, or offshore resources. So we have a very tight, cohesive culture and process and feedback loop where we hear from clients, and we're working really closely with our merchants and have a pretty good sense of what's happening out there in the real world. We do a lot of work in the B2B and B2C space, both. We're located in Minneapolis. There's a lot of B2B in the upper Midwest. So our process and our company sort of engineered around both of those verticals, B2B and B2C. And within those, we're agnostic. So we have worked with clients across industries: apparel, food and beverage, automotive, agricultural, etc. So those are some of the more straightforward sort of data points, some things that are a little bit more specific to us that I think paint a better picture of who we are. On the title slide with my picture, I mentioned business first, online second. That's our main philosophy. For anybody listening right now or watching this, you might recognize the name Simon Sinek. He wrote a book called Start With Why, which is based on this concept of the golden circle. That's the kind of the bullseye looking graphic on this slide. Our why is business first, online second. That's why we're in business. And I think that influences the way we go to market and the way we work with our clients and what we hear back from our clients. And so that will set the table for some of the data points in the next couple of slides. We engage with our clients in a very close way, partnerships, not transactions. And then that's our how. And then our what is just the boring, fast pitch elevator speech, as people refer to it. We're an e-commerce agency offering strategy, marketing, creative, and technology. So that's what we do, which is why I think we have an interesting perspective. If we can go to the next slide now, please. Our team provides strategy, creative, and technology, as I mentioned, and they're all working towards business first, online second, with an underpinning of project management. So we work very closely with our merchants to hear from them what their business strategies are, what they're trying to accomplish with their site from an income statement perspective, a balance sheet perspective. We're not working with our merchants in a sense of bits and bytes and the latest acronyms. We work really closely with them from a business perspective. So we hear back from them what they're encountering, what they're trying to accomplish, and what they're seeing out there. So if we move on to the next slide, let's talk about what we are seeing, because I think that Sachin talked about the year-over-year industry and research trends that BigCommerce is seeing. Greg discussed the evolutions in new age loyalty, the economic return of using 4 or more of those elements of value. So we're going to share what we're seeing today, where those trends intersect, what we're seeing from merchants, and what we're seeing with our fingers on the keyboard, working with our merchants for their e-commerce operations. And it really can be summarized into 2 categories. Merchants themselves have evolved their directives. Their demands, their requirements have evolved, and customers that are visiting our merchant sites have elevated expectations. And so we have the benefit, you might say burden, of bringing to bear the solutions that satisfy those 2 trends that we're seeing. And I think that reinforces why we're partners with Annex Cloud and BigCommerce, because they help us support these trends and help us keep our merchants happy. That's what we're trying to do, right? So from a merchant perspective and their evolving directives, we have seen a shift in mindset from complex platform intensive builds to launches with an eye on speed to market. So e-commerce projects used to be significantly focused on the technical architecture, the heavy lift, what's getting the site to work and integrate and execute what are now relatively standard e-commerce practices. Some projects are still very intensive. It's very complex. Don't get me wrong. If there is significant integration on the back end and maybe your data hygiene is challenged, those are things that can contribute to a complex project. Just like unique custom requirements. But with the advancements in technology and solutions, merchants are now wanting to launch e-commerce sites much quicker, that provide much more functionality out of the box. They want that modularity, they want scoping, they want phasing. So they want to be able to launch an e-commerce site that provides a reliable shopping cart, reliable navigation, strong search capabilities, and we'll get to some of what's driving that here in a second. And they want to be able to launch that and move on to additional projects thereafter without having to eat the whole lunch at once, which is, I think, the segue to the last point there, where merchants are wanting to launch an e-commerce channel without dedicating the entirety of their budget, or even the great majority of their budget, to the technical lift. They want to be able to maintain budget to be able to allocate to marketing. Because once you build a site, you still have to invest in driving traffic to that site, the acquisition, the conversion, and the retention. Some of the themes of the funnel that Greg was speaking to, though, that's where you want to be able to preserve some budget. And so we are hearing more and more from merchants that they're expecting those very things. And part of why they're expecting those things is what they're hearing from their customers who have an elevated experience, or elevated expectations, excuse me, because those customers are expecting an experience, not just a shopping cart. When they get to the site, they want to be able to quickly find product, for example. So they want to be able to search your site, not be forced to shop your site. Faceted search is one of the requests that we hear more frequently, because merchants are hearing that from their customers. A very visible search, right? I think that mobile accessibility is implied and assumed and expected today, but one of the things that can separate a good mobile e-commerce site from a less good mobile e-commerce site is how visible your search is on your mobile experience, and we're hearing that. Now, one of the things that Sachin spoke about was buy online, pick up in store, BOPIS, and there has been explosive growth there. There's a 208% increase in buy online, pick up in store transactions between this year and last year. Now, of course, that is being driven, at least largely, by COVID, but that is something that in theory, we could have been doing before and offering a better experience and more convenient. Lastly, these customers are expecting omni-channel and brand immersive experiences. And that touches on what both Sachin and Greg spoke to, with the buy online, pick up in store speaks to that. The emotions that Greg spoke about from a loyalty perspective reinforce brand. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to rebrand yourself, but it does mean that if you're not offering some level of brand experience that is authentic, reinforces your voice and those sorts of brand terms, then your customers are going to wonder, well, I can just go to Amazon, I can go to Etsy, I can go to one of the channels and buy. So if you have a branded site, the name itself implies that you should make sure to be providing a brand supportive experience. Next slide, please. So we are fortunate enough to have a client who is shared between BigCommerce, Annex Cloud, and Irish Titan. They are also fortunate enough to be in one of the categories experiencing strong year-over-year growth, per one of the earlier slides that Sachin spoke to, and that client is Surdyk. We have Lindsay Coleman, who will be joining us here in a second after I tee up their story. So Surdyk's Liquor and Cheese Shop is a family-owned Minneapolis business. They've been in business since 1934. They are adored locally as wine experts. They also have great cheese. And so they have been amplifying their e-commerce. Now, they began their journey, this story, to a more sophisticated channel prior to the pandemic. So they were in front of some of the trends that they're now capitalizing on. And so they deserve some credit for that. Some of their initial requirements were some of what I spoke to. They wanted a feature-rich but not dev-intensive e-commerce platform. They are revamping their loyalty system, capitalizing on some of the best practices that Greg spoke to. They were placing a premium on seamless search and navigation. That was very important to them with the breadth and variety of product that they offer. And then they were doing a bit of a light brand refresh as well. One of the things that was discussed pretty extensively early in the project and has since been tabled is the Minnesota liquor laws don't allow the sale of groceries, which in their case would be cheese, and liquor in the same store without clear boundaries, clear physical boundaries. So in bricks and mortar, Minnesota law requires certain boundaries there. One of the things that we were beginning to navigate was how we are going to address that online. It's since been tabled because of some remodeling they're doing in their store anyway. But that is, we decided to keep that in here as a point to bring attention to in case other people need to navigate that and research that in their own states and localities. So what we've done is work closely with them and BigCommerce and Annex Cloud to integrate their new BigCommerce store with their existing point of sale system, which is from Counterpoint NCR, to provide the Omni-Channel inventory we've spoken to and all those best of breed e-commerce features that we've spoken to. We've also integrated Annex Cloud to power their newly structured loyalty program. They did have a loyalty program before, still do, and the site which is going to launch very, very soon. Both Lindsay and I are pushing for that. Is going to be the launch of their new loyalty program. So that's the story that I think leads us to the discussion that Lindsay and I will have, and we can get going on the Q&A there. So Lindsay, can you hear me?
Hi, Darin, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Fine, thanks.
Good, thanks for joining us. I think everybody's excited to hear from you. They always prefer to hear from the merchants and not the partners, and I don't blame them. So we're excited to hear you talk.
Great, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Cool, cool. So let's start kind of at the beginning of the journey, I guess. What triggered Surdyk to re-platform, and then how did you decide on BigCommerce as your platform?
Like I think a lot of people were having to deal with is that Magento 1 hit end of life, and we're a smaller company, we're a small team, so we knew it was coming, and it was getting to the point where we needed to make a decision. So we wanted something that was going to be able to integrate with our existing point of sale, NCR Counterpoint, which you mentioned. And we wanted to be able to use those extensive databases that we already had in place to continue to grow, integrate those, and then plus add in a lot of the features that we were looking for, particularly in regards to loyalty.
Cool, cool. So I think the attendees probably are motivated by a couple of things, right? Like how to capitalize on e-commerce opportunities in general, but also how to navigate these pandemic times. So we'll bounce back and forth a little bit between those two with these questions. So let's start with this. How has your omni-channel e-commerce strategy changed since COVID hit?
Well, of course, like we've been talking about already, the growth has been huge. We definitely saw that big bump, as we talked about earlier, in that online, from the in-store sales to the online sales. So we saw new customers, but we also saw customers that we were used to seeing in store now shopping online. We had to make some adjustments to some of the infrastructure in our store. We had to pivot people from being a cashier or a stocker to being part of the e-commerce team and filling orders, or we added curbside pickup to our offerings. So we definitely saw that increased grocery panic early on. I think now people are starting to sort of see this as more of a long-term way of shopping versus a short-term, well, we better stock up as fast as we can, stay home. So I think that's been something that we had to make a lot of decisions on, and quickly.
Sure, sure. Let's bounce over to loyalty for a couple of questions. So let's set the table. What did your loyalty program look like prior to replatforming?
Well, we have actually had a loyalty program in place at Surdyk for quite a while. The current loyalty program launched about 2004, 2005, before my time. So it's a pretty simple concept. You earn a point for every dollar that you spend on wine, beer, and spirits. And once they hit the certain point total, they would receive a coupon in the mail. So we have been using that strategy for a long time, and it's been really successful. Customers really like it. But we were definitely looking for a way to move into that new age loyalty program.
And then what do you have in mind for the structure of your loyalty program when we launch here shortly?
Well, we're definitely going to be taking advantage of a lot of the features that Annex Cloud has been able to offer us. We're going to be offering more than just a single coupon. We're going to be making the program more dynamic so that there's more offerings. They can use the points that they earn on more and different things. We're working on bringing in some new sorts of programs in, maybe donate your points or something along those lines to keep customers reinvigorated, keep them coming back.
And then how are you going to be measuring success for the program? Because your original program was pretty successful. Your new program is pretty well structured and capitalizing on some of those most important trends and best practices, right? Like I think if we think about Greg's elements of value pyramid a few slides back, you're capitalizing on a lot of those elements represented in that chart. So how are you going to be measuring the success of your program?
Well, I mean, obviously, everybody knows that we have to talk about ROI. We have to talk about average order value, site engagement, click-throughs, those sorts of buzzwords. But we're also coming at it from the perspective that we have customers that are already engaged. How can we get them reinvigorated? How can we keep those customers that have come to us online because of COVID or are shifting the ways that they buy grocery or liquor, retail goods online? How can we get them back? How can we keep them interested in coming to Surdyk? How can we keep them interested in shopping at surdyk.com? So we are going to be thinking a lot about some of those intangibles too. Is it easy to use? Are they excited about the program? Are they doing some of the other value adds? Are they referring people to our site? Those sorts of things as well.
Sure, sure. Let's shift over to a few project-related questions for any merchants who are sitting in on this. They always want to learn from each other about how to make sure that any of their e-commerce initiatives go as smoothly as possible. So let's ask a couple of project-related questions here. What tangible challenges did you encounter in launching your site and loyalty program? So what tangible challenges did you maybe encounter in this initiative?
So as I mentioned before, we started our program a while back, way before e-commerce was a really big thing for us. So we had been up until this point we had our customers just based on a customer number. It's their name, it's their phone number. So now we have to get their email address on file. So we have done a huge push this year collecting email addresses from our customers as a unique identifier, trying to drive people to get onto the site, to add that info to their profile, talk to them at the register, get people engaged in that way. So that is something that if people had not been collecting and were thinking about going to a digital loyalty program, I would say start that project as soon as you can.
Data hygiene, as I was referring to earlier.
Data hygiene, yes.
In a different way. I was talking about integrations.
Yeah.
So a little bit more generally or strategically, what advice would you give a merchant considering replatforming? What advice about launching a new loyalty program. So what more conceptual advice would you offer them?
I mean, it is definitely a big decision to make. It's a big project to do in general. I think I would focus a lot on the functionality, what's going to be realistic for you as a company to lift. Where should you start? What do you start with? What are your goals? What are your long-term goals? Think about those things and potentially start one place and then start with the value and then go to the value add-ons. I think giving sort of due focus to each and every system, that way you have a better understanding of how everything could work together in the most seamless way possible.
Right. Yeah, that could be a lot to bite off at once. So I think that's sound advice. Greg, with that, Lindsay and I have wrapped up our Q&A, our fireside digital chat. So I think that I should hand it back to you. Thank you, Lindsay, for joining us, and thanks for being a great client. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks, Darin.
Yeah, thanks so much. That was really interesting and insightful. And actually, Lindsay, we do have one question. Unfortunately, we don't have your face up on here. I feel bad now. We've just got the three of us, but the question is actually for you from one of our attendees. So the question is, how did you and your company succeed to obtaining email addresses our customers like to check out as a guest?
Well, because of the loyalty program, and thanks for the question, because of the loyalty program, customers have been pretty comfortable with having to give their name because they wanted to get that coupon. So I think it is, we did a lot of email promotion, just saying, hey, if you're a customer, come on in. We can do this. You can do it online. You can do it in store. I know obviously you want people to check out as guests, but I think trying to drive people through a landing page that gets them into information about the loyalty program, I think that kind of helps people feel comfortable with providing that info off the bat.
Awesome. That's a great answer. Yeah, thank you for answering that, Lindsay. And again, we really appreciate you hopping on this webinar. That's really the only question that we had. The only other question that someone did ask, and I'll just, if I didn't mention this at the beginning, I apologize, but someone did ask about if this was going to be recorded and sent out, and absolutely we'll be sending this recording out to anyone that was curious afterwards. So appreciate that question as well. So with that, we'll wrap up, but before we do, did just want to extend a few special offers that we all have here today for you guys to consider. And we'll make sure to send links out to all of these offers when we send out the recording as well. But BigCommerce has been generous enough to extend an offer of 3 months free on every one of their plans. So if anyone is evaluating replatforming or has any questions about the BigCommerce platform, please feel free to take advantage of that offer. Again, we'll send the link to you in the follow-up. Also, Darin and Irish Titan have been kind enough to offer a free site audit with one of their e-commerce strategists. So, again, if anyone has any questions or looking to enhance their experience, their online experience, there's no one better than Irish and their team to do that. So, definitely take advantage of that free site audit. And then lastly, at Annex Cloud, we're offering essentially to get you up and running with your loyalty program at no real cost. So we're offering 3 months free plus 0 implementation costs for anyone that's looking to explore revamping their loyalty program. So those are the offers that we have. And again, we really appreciate everyone joining today. We hope this was really insightful. And if you guys have any other questions for us, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'll have all of our contact information for you guys in the follow-up. Thanks again for your time today.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks everybody. Have a good day.